Jake Morrison stood by the big window of his ship and watched the alien space station get bigger as they moved closer. The station looked like a bunch of glass towers stuck together, and it sparkled with strange lights that changed colors every few seconds. Jake had been traveling through space for 15 years, but he still thought alien buildings looked weird compared to the simple metal structures humans built. His ship was called the Liberty, and it was one of the newer human ships designed for talking to aliens instead of fighting them. The whole ship was painted white with blue stripes and had big communication arrays instead of weapon systems. Jake liked that because he was tired of fighting after the last war with the robot armies on the outer colonies. Amy Carter walked up to him holding a datapad that was flashing red warnings. She was his second in command and one of the smartest people he knew, even though she was only 28 years old. Amy had short brown hair and always wore her uniform perfectly pressed, which made Jake feel bad about his own wrinkled jacket. "Sir, the Zephyrians want to delay the meeting again," Amy said while scrolling through the message on her screen. "They say they need more time to study how humans behave before they can trust us with their technology." Jake rubbed his forehead and felt a headache starting. This was the fourth time this month that the crystal aliens had postponed their negotiations. Every time they had a different excuse, but it always came down to the same thing, which was that they thought humans were too violent and stupid to be trusted. The Zephyrians were one of the most powerful alien races in the galaxy, and they controlled most of the advanced technology that humans needed to expand beyond their small corner of space. Their bodies were made of some kind of living crystal that could change shape, and they spoke in musical tones that sounded beautiful but somehow always seemed condescending when translated into human language. "What about the other aliens?" Jake asked while still looking out the window. "Are the Krovaxi and Veltar still watching these meetings?" Amy nodded and pulled up another screen on her datapad. "Yes, sir, both delegations are still here, and they seem to be enjoying watching us get rejected over and over again. The Krovaxi War chief actually laughed yesterday when Ambassador Silthes said we needed another month of evaluation." Jake clenched his jaw because he knew that every day they spent in these useless negotiations was another day that human colonies went without the medical technology and food production systems they desperately needed. People were dying while these crystal aliens played their stupid games. The Krovaxi were tall lizard-like creatures who respected only strength and military power. They had been watching the human negotiations with obvious amusement because they could see that the Zephyrians were treating humans like children who needed to be managed. The Veltar were shorter and looked like furry otters, but they were the best traders in the galaxy, and they were probably calculating how much money they could make if humans remained dependent on expensive imports. 2 hours later, Jake found himself sitting in the main conference room of the alien station surrounded by beings who could destroy his entire species without much effort. The room was designed for the Zephyrians, so everything was made of the same crystalline material as their bodies, and the walls rang like bells whenever someone spoke too loudly. Ambassador Silthes was the leader of the Zephyrian delegation, and he stood almost 9 feet tall with a body that looked like it was carved from blue diamond. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, but Jake had learned that the prettier the music, the more insulting the actual words usually were. "Honored humans," Silthes began with his musical voice filling the crystal chamber. "We have reviewed your latest proposals for technology sharing, and we have some concerns about your species readiness for advanced systems." Jake tried to keep his face neutral, but he could feel his anger building like pressure in a steam engine. They had been through this same conversation dozens of times, and it always ended with the Zephyrians finding new reasons to delay or deny human requests. "We understand your concerns, Ambassador," Jake replied using the formal diplomatic language he had been taught. "Perhaps you could be more specific about what additional requirements we need to meet." Silthes made a sound like crystal breaking, which Jake had learned was their version of laughter. "Commander Morrison, your species has such primitive emotional responses to simple challenges. You become agitated when faced with reasonable delays, and your people have documented histories of violence when frustrated. How can we trust beings who cannot control their base instincts?" The Krovaxi War chief Thaxmore leaned forward in his chair with obvious interest. He was a massive creature covered in green scales with yellow eyes that missed nothing. Jake had noticed that Thaxmore seemed to be studying human behavior more carefully than anyone else in the room. Perhaps, Sylphes continued while his crystalline form shifted to a more imposing shape, it would be wise to place humanity in a probationary status within the Galactic Council for the next century. During this time you could learn to evolve beyond such destructive emotional patterns and prove yourselves worthy of advanced technology. Jake felt something snap inside his mind like a rubber band breaking under too much tension. He had spent months swallowing his pride and accepting insults for the greater good of humanity. He had listened to these crystal aliens lecture him about violence, while they used their superior technology to threaten and control smaller species. He had watched them delay and obstruct every human request while approving similar requests from other aliens in days or hours. The room went completely silent as Jake stood up slowly from his chair. His hands were steady and his voice was calm, but everyone present could sense that something fundamental had changed in the human delegation. "Now I am really annoyed," Jake said quietly. The translation systems rendered his words perfectly into galactic standard language, but something about the way he said those 5 simple words made every alien in the room suddenly become very still. The Krovaxi delegation exchanged nervous glances and Thaxmore actually smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. A Veltar merchant who had been taking notes suddenly stopped writing and backed away from the conference table. Sylphes, however, did not understand the warning because his species had never learned to recognize the subtle signs that indicated when a human had reached the end of their patience. "Your emotional state is irrelevant, Commander Morrison. We are simply being cautious about your species' documented tendency toward violence and destruction." Jake smiled, but it was not the kind of smile that appeared in diplomatic training manuals. It was the kind of smile that human soldiers wore right before they did something that would be talked about for generations. 3 days after Jake Morrison said those 5 words in the Crystal Conference Room, strange things began happening to Zephyrian ships throughout the galaxy. The first reports came from their merchant convoy that was carrying rare metals and technology, components to trade with other alien species. Every single ship in the convoy suddenly developed critical system failures that left them drifting helplessly in space. The failures were not explosions or crashes that would indicate sabotage by weapons or bombs. Instead, the ships simply stopped, working as if someone had reached into their computer systems and turned off all the important functions. Engines that had run perfectly for decades suddenly displayed error messages in languages that did not exist. Navigation computers started showing star maps of fictional solar systems. Life support systems began playing human music at volumes that made it impossible to think. Captain Lisa Wang stood in the emergency session of the Galactic Council wearing her best dress uniform and carrying a datapad filled with technical analysis reports. She was humanity's chief technology expert and had spent the last 3 days studying the Zephyrian ship failures with great interest and absolutely no surprise. "Honored Council members," Lisa began while displaying holographic images of the failed Zephyrian systems. "We have conducted a thorough analysis of the mechanical problems affecting our Zephyrian colleagues, and we believe we have identified the source of their difficulties." Ambassador Sylphes was practically vibrating with rage as his crystalline form shifted through several different angry colors. "These failures are clearly the result of human sabotage. There is no other explanation for such widespread system malfunctions." Lisa looked at her datapad with an expression of innocent concern that would have fooled anyone who did not know her very well. "Our analysis indicates that these failures are caused by a cascading software virus of unknown origin. The virus appears to target systems that are operating outside normal legal parameters, which might explain why it affected ships carrying goods intended for unauthorized trade agreements." She paused and looked directly at Sylphes with a helpful smile. "Of course, we would be happy to assist with repairs to your fleet. Human computer specialists are quite skilled with these types of problems. We could have your ships operational again within hours once our own technology sharing agreements are finalized." War Chief Thaxmore leaned forward in his massive chair and studied the human delegation with growing respect. He had been a military commander for over 50 years, and he recognized a perfectly executed tactical strike when he saw one. The humans had not fired a single weapon or made any threats, but they had effectively crippled the most powerful merchant fleet in the galaxy. Dr. Wang Faxmore rumbled in his deep voice that sounded like rocks grinding together. How were you able to identify this virus so quickly when Zephyrian technicians could not even detect its presence? Lisa turned to face the Krovaxi war chief with the same innocent expression. We are very good with computers, war chief. It is one of our species' natural talents. Human children begin learning programming before they can walk properly, and we have developed some very advanced techniques for computer security, she gestured to her datapad, which was displaying code that looked like gibberish to most aliens, but would have terrified any computer expert who understood what they were seeing. We have been studying galactic computer systems for months as part of our integration process. We wanted to make sure our technology would be compatible with existing networks. Meanwhile, on the outer rim of the galaxy, Captain Ben Rodriguez was receiving reports from his patrol squadron about Zephyrian mining operations in disputed territory. Ben was a third-generation space pilot, whose grandfather had fought in the first alien contact wars and whose father had helped establish the first human colonies beyond Earth. Sir, we have detected 17 unauthorized mining facilities in the Kepler sector, reported Sergeant Katie Brooks, who was his tactical officer and the best scanner operator in the human fleet. The Zephyrians appear to be extracting rare minerals without proper council permits. Ben studied the reports on his command screen and felt his anger growing as he read the details. The crystal aliens had been using their diplomatic immunity to bend council regulations for months while simultaneously lecturing humans about following proper procedures. They had been stealing resources from unclaimed worlds while demanding that humans undergo years of evaluation before being trusted with basic technology. Sir, what are our orders regarding these illegal operations? Katie asked while highlighting the mining sites on the tactical display. Command has instructed us to document violations but take no direct action unless we are attacked first. Ben checked the mission parameters that had been transmitted from Earth 3 days ago, right after Commander Morrison had his diplomatic meeting with the Zephyrians. The orders were very specific about maintaining proper legal procedures, but they also contained some interesting suggestions about the thoroughness of human scanning operations. Now I am really annoyed, Ben muttered while reading the reports about Zephyrian resource theft. Katie grinned because she had served under Ben Rodriguez for 2 years, and she knew exactly what that phrase meant when spoken by a human officer who had run out of patience with alien bureaucracy. Sir, should we file a formal complaint with the Council about these violations? Oh, we will do much more than file complaints, Sergeant, Ben replied while pulling up the specifications for their new scanning equipment. We are going to conduct the most thorough and comprehensive survey of this sector that has ever been performed in galactic history. He turned to his communications officer, who was a young lieutenant named Matt Cooper. Matt, I want you to prepare detailed scanning protocols for every single Zephyrian facility in this sector. We are going to document every bolt and wire in those illegal mining operations. Matt looked at his console with growing excitement because he understood what his captain was really ordering. Sir, should our scans be particularly intensive? The kind that might interfere with delicate electronic equipment? Absolutely, Lieutenant. Ben confirmed with the same kind of smile that Jake Morrison had worn 3 days earlier. We want to make sure we gather complete information about these unauthorized activities. If their equipment happens to be disrupted by our scanning procedures, well, that is just an unfortunate side effect of thorough documentation, the human patrol. Ships moved into scanning formation around the first Zephyrian mining facility 6 hours later. To any outside observer, they appeared to be conducting routine surveillance operations that were completely legal under Council regulations. However, the intensity and frequency of their scanner beams was far beyond what was necessary for simple documentation. The Zephyrian mining equipment began experiencing system failures within minutes of the human ships arriving. Massive excavators that had been operating continuously for months suddenly shut down with error messages that claimed their authorization codes were invalid. Atmospheric processors stopped working and began venting expensive gases into space. Transport ships found their navigation systems displaying warnings about operating in restricted areas even though they had been using the same flight paths for years. The most frustrating part for the Zephyrians was that nothing the humans were doing was technically illegal or aggressive. They were simply conducting very thorough scans of the mining operations and documenting every single violation of Council regulations they could find. If the Zephyrian equipment could not handle intensive scanning procedures, then perhaps it was not as advanced as they claimed. The Zephyrian illegal mining operations continued to experience equipment failures throughout the following week as human patrol ships conducted their comprehensive documentation procedures. What had started as simple scanner sweeps had evolved into a systematic dismantling of crystal alien infrastructure without firing a single weapon or breaking any galactic laws. Captain Ben Rodriguez watched from his command chair as the 17th mining facility shut down completely after his ships finished their detailed analysis of the operation. The massive Zephyrian excavators that had been tearing apart asteroid fields for precious metals now sat silent and dark with their control systems, displaying error messages in 17 different human languages, so the Zephyrians are requesting immediate cessation of our scanning operations, reported Lieutenant Matt Cooper from his communications station. They claim our activities are interfering with legitimate business operations. Ben almost laughed because there was nothing legitimate about Zephyrian mining in disputed territory without proper council permits. Matt, please inform the Crystal aliens that we are conducting routine patrol duties as assigned by Galactic Council regulations. If they have concerns about our procedures, they should file a formal complaint through proper diplomatic channels. Sergeant Katie Brooks looked up from her tactical station with a satisfied expression. Sir, I am detecting massive system failures across all Zephyrian facilities in this sector. Their atmospheric processors have stopped working and their transport ships cannot maintain stable navigation locks. At current failure rates, they will be forced to abandon these operations within 48 hours. Meanwhile, back at the council station, Ambassador Silthes was discovering that filing complaints against human activities was much more difficult than he had expected. Every time he tried to present evidence of human interference, the documentation showed that the human ships were operating within legal parameters, while his own mining operations were clearly violating multiple council regulations. Dr. Lisa Wang sat across from Silthes in the council arbitration chamber with a stack of data pads containing detailed scans of every illegal Zephyrian facility in known space. Her expression was polite and professional, but her eyes held the same cold calculation that had appeared in Jake Morrison when he said he was really annoyed. Ambassador Silthes, Lisa began while activating a holographic display that showed the disputed mining sector. Our analysis indicates that Zephyrian operations have been extracting resources from 17 different worlds without proper environmental impact studies or council authorization. The total value of illegally extracted materials exceeds 40 billion. Galactic credits. Silthes shifted through several angry colors as his crystalline form tried to find a comfortable position in the arbitration chair. The locations of our mining operations are irrelevant to this discussion. Your ships are deliberately interfering with our equipment using illegal scanning procedures. Lisa consulted one of her data pads and highlighted a section of galactic law that appeared on the main display screen. Council Regulation 7.7.4 clearly states that patrol ships have the authority to conduct comprehensive scans of any facility operating in disputed territory. Our scanning procedures are intensive, but they fall within legal parameters established by this council. She paused and looked directly at the Crystal Alien Ambassador. However, our scans have revealed significant violations of mining regulations, safety protocols, and environmental protection laws. Perhaps Zephyrian equipment is simply not designed to operate outside legal boundaries. War Chief Thaxmore observed the proceedings from his position at the council table. With growing admiration for human tactical thinking, the Crystal Aliens had been outmaneuvered so completely that they could not even file effective complaints without admitting to their own illegal activities. Dr. Wang Faxmore interrupted with his rumbling voice. How extensive are these human scanning capabilities? Could similar procedures be applied to other sectors if violations were suspected? Lisa smiled with the kind of expression that made experienced warriors nervous. War Chief, our scanning technology is quite advanced and we have been developing new techniques for comprehensive system analysis. We could easily extend our documentation procedures to any area where Council regulations might be violated. The threat was subtle but unmistakable to everyone in the chamber. Humans had demonstrated the ability to disable advanced alien technology through legal scanning procedures, and they were offering to apply these techniques wherever violations were discovered. That evening, the Veltar merchant representative Kickstall approached Jake Morrison in the diplomatic quarters with information that changed everything about galactic politics. The furry otter-like alien was nervous and kept looking over his shoulder as if he expected to be overheard. "Commander Morrison," Kickstall whispered while his large eyes darted around the empty corridor. "My people have been monitoring galactic communications networks, and we have discovered something unusual about human reputation." Jake raised an eyebrow because he had not realized that humans had developed any kind of reputation among alien species, beyond being persistent negotiators who asked too many questions. "What kind of unusual things, Kickstall?" The Veltar merchant pulled out a small communication device that displayed text messages in several alien languages. "There are rumors spreading throughout known space about a human warning phrase. When your species says, 'Now, I am really annoyed,' other beings should prepare for immediate tactical action." Jake studied the messages with growing surprise because he had no idea that his words in the council chamber had been noticed by anyone beyond the immediate participants. "These rumors seem oddly specific, Kickstall. Who is spreading this information?" "The Krovaxi have begun teaching the phrase to their warriors as a combat indicator," Kickstall explained while scrolling through more messages. "They are telling their soldiers to watch for signs of human annoyance and prepare for enhanced tactical responses when humans reach that emotional state." He paused and looked directly at Jake with an expression that might have been respect or fear. "Commander, your Captain Rodriguez has developed quite a reputation among patrol fleets throughout the galaxy. They are calling him the scanner who sees everything, and his ships are being compared to legendary weapons from ancient wars." Jake realized that something much larger than a simple diplomatic dispute was developing around human behavior patterns. Other alien species were studying human psychological responses and drawing conclusions about human capabilities that went far beyond anything Earth Command had intended to reveal. "Kickstall, what exactly are other species saying about human tactical abilities?" The Veltar merchant activated another screen that showed communication intercepts from dozens of different alien civilizations. "The consensus among military analysts is that humans have developed a unique form of psychological warfare that combines emotional responses with enhanced strategic thinking. Most species either suppress emotions for logical decisions or let emotions drive instinctive reactions." He highlighted several technical reports that had been prepared by alien military intelligence services. "Humans appear to use controlled anger as a tool for more effective problem solving. When you reach maximum annoyance, your species becomes more creative, more determined, and more willing to accept significant risks to achieve objectives." Jake felt a chill because he realized that alien military experts were analyzing human behavior like a weapon system and drawing conclusions that could change the entire balance of galactic power. If other species believed that annoyed humans were more dangerous than calm humans, then every diplomatic interaction would be viewed through that lens. News of the human combat indicator spread through galactic communication networks faster than anyone had expected, and what started as a simple diplomatic standoff was becoming a case study in human psychology that every alien military organization wanted to understand. Yar Elena Foster found herself at the center of this scientific curiosity as requests for interviews and research data flooded her office aboard the diplomatic station. Elena was a xenopsychologist who specialized in understanding how different species thought and made decisions, but she had never expected her research subjects to become interested in studying Her own species, the Altarian Science Collective, had sent their most experienced researchers to interview her about human emotional responses and tactical thinking patterns. The Altarians were tall, thin beings with large heads who prided themselves on pure logical reasoning without emotional interference, so they found human psychology particularly fascinating and disturbing. Dr. Foster began, senior researcher Vendaros, while his pale blue skin shifted through different shades that indicated deep concentration. Our analysis of human behavior patterns suggests that your species has developed an unusual relationship with aggressive emotions. Most civilized beings either eliminate such responses or channel them into controlled outlets. Elena activated a holographic display that showed brain scan images from human subjects during various emotional states. You are correct that humans have a unique approach to anger and frustration. What we call controlled fury is actually a complex neurological process that combines emotional arousal with enhanced cognitive function. She pointed to areas of the brain that lit up in different colors during the scans. When a human says, "Now, I am really annoyed," they are not losing rational control as most species would expect. Instead, they are engaging higher levels of strategic thinking while simultaneously accepting greater risks and more creative solutions. The Altarian researchers exchanged glances through their large black eyes as they processed this information. Are you suggesting that human anger actually improves decision-making capabilities rather than degrading them? In controlled situations, yes, Elena confirmed while pulling up additional research data. Humans who reach maximum frustration levels demonstrate increased pattern recognition, improved tactical planning, and greater willingness to attempt solutions that calm humans would consider too dangerous or unconventional. Meanwhile, the Zephyrians were discovering exactly what this meant. In practical terms, as their complaints to the Galactic Council were met with detailed documentation of their own regulatory violations spanning decades of illegal operations. Every protest they filed revealed new evidence of crystal alien wrongdoing that had been meticulously catalogued by human reconnaissance teams. Ambassador Sylphis sat in his crystal chambers, reading report after report that demonstrated how thoroughly humans had penetrated Zephyrian operations throughout the galaxy. Mining facilities that had operated in secret for years had been documented down to individual equipment serial numbers. Trade routes that violated council agreements had been mapped with precision that suggested months of preparation. The most disturbing aspect was that humans had apparently been gathering this intelligence while maintaining perfectly diplomatic behavior during negotiations. Every smile and polite response had concealed systematic information gathering that would have impressed professional espionage organizations. His communication system chimed with an incoming message from the Krovaxi military command that made his crystalline form vibrate with alarm. War Chief Faxmore was requesting detailed briefings about human tactical capabilities and asking whether the Zephyrians would be willing to share intelligence about human behavior patterns. Sylphis realized that his species had severely underestimated human capabilities and that their continued resistance to human council membership was beginning to look like a strategic mistake that could isolate them from potential military allies. The situation escalated dramatically when Captain Ben Rodriguez encountered a Zephyrian battlecruiser in the disputed mining sector. The massive warship appeared without warning and immediately powered up weapon systems, while demanding that human patrol ships withdraw from what they claimed was Zephyrian sovereign territory. Ben studied the alien vessel on his tactical display and noted that it was one of the most advanced warships in the galaxy with enough firepower to destroy his entire squadron. The logical response would be to retreat and file a diplomatic protest, but Ben had been conducting scanning operations for 2 weeks while documenting illegal mining activities, and his patience was completely exhausted. "Sir, the Zephyrian vessel is targeting our ships with weapon systems," reported Sergeant Katie Brooks from her tactical station. "They are demanding immediate withdrawal and threatening to open fire if we do not comply within 5 minutes. Ben activated his communication system and opened a channel to all ships in his squadron while simultaneously broadcasting on diplomatic frequencies that would be monitored throughout the galaxy. All ships, this is Captain Rodriguez. The Zephyrian battlecruiser is threatening human patrol vessels conducting legal operations in disputed territory. He paused and looked at the alien warship that was 3 times larger than his flagship, with enough weapons to level a small planet. Now I am really annoyed. The phrase was broadcast on all diplomatic channels and translated into every known galactic language within seconds. Across the galaxy, alien military analysts who had been studying human behavioral patterns suddenly focused their attention on the disputed sector because they knew they were about to witness a demonstration of human tactical capabilities under maximum stress conditions. Ben turned to his communications officer, Lieutenant Matt Cooper, who was waiting for orders with barely controlled excitement. Matt, activate all scanning arrays at maximum intensity and target every system on that battlecruiser. I want complete penetration of their computer networks within 10 minutes. Sir, that level of scanning will definitely be detected as hostile action, Katie warned while preparing her own systems. The Zephyrians will interpret intensive scans as preparation for attack. Good, Ben replied with the same cold smile that was becoming famous throughout galactic military circles. Maybe they will learn something about threatening human patrol ships conducting legal operations. The human squadron began intensive scanning of the Zephyrian battlecruiser using procedures that went far beyond anything in standard tactical manuals. What appeared to be defensive analysis was actually a coordinated cyber warfare attack that penetrated alien computer systems through scanner feedback loops. Within minutes, the massive Zephyrian warship began experiencing cascading system failures as human scanning beams interfaced with crystal alien technology in ways that should have been impossible. Weapon systems went offline and displayed error messages about unauthorized targeting parameters. Engine controls stopped responding and began running diagnostic routines that would take hours to complete. The most embarrassing failure occurred when the ship's communication system began broadcasting human music at maximum volume while displaying holographic images of Earth animals throughout all interior compartments. The crew found themselves trying to operate a state-of-the-art battlecruiser while cartoon images of cats played on every screen. 17 minutes after Ben Rodriguez announced his annoyance, the Zephyrian battlecruiser was drifting helplessly in space with all major systems offline and its crew unharmed but thoroughly demoralized. The human patrol ships had disabled a vessel 10 times their size, without firing a single weapon or causing any physical damage to alien personnel. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of the incident in the disputed sector as representatives from every major species gathered to witness what many considered a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics. The holographic recordings of a human patrol squadron disabling an advanced Zephyrian battlecruiser without firing weapons had been broadcast throughout. Known Space Ambassador Sylphis entered the council chamber with his crystalline form somehow, managing to appear subdued despite being made of solid mineral. His usual confident posture had been replaced by what could only be described as alien embarrassment as he approached the diplomatic podium-honored council members. Sylphis began with his musical voice lacking its usual condescending tone. The Zephyrian delegation has carefully reviewed recent events involving human patrol activities, and we have decided to reconsider our previous positions. Regarding human membership in this council, Jake Morrison stood to receive what appeared to be a formal apology, but his expression remained serious as he studied the crystal alien ambassador. 3 weeks of diplomatic frustration had taught him that Zephyrian statements often contained hidden conditions or new demands. We appreciate the Zephyrian recognition of our diplomatic capabilities, Ambassador Jake replied while his words were translated into dozens of alien languages. However, we want to be completely clear about something that seems to have caused confusion. Among council members, the chamber fell silent as representatives from species throughout the galaxy focused their attention on the human delegation. Even the background hum of translation systems seemed to quiet as if the technology itself was listening carefully. Humans do not want to fight, Jake continued while gesturing toward his small delegation. We prefer negotiation, cooperation, and peaceful solutions to conflicts whenever possible. Our species has learned through bitter experience that violence should always be the last option rather than the first. Response to disagreement. He paused and looked directly at each alien delegation in turn. But when we say now I am really annoyed, what we mean is that we have exhausted our patience with peaceful methods and we are prepared to demonstrate why our species survived long enough to reach the stars, despite being relatively primitive compared to your advanced civilizations. War Chief Thaxmore rose from his massive chair and performed a formal salute that involved striking his chest with both fists while maintaining direct eye contact. The Crovaxi respects strength above all other qualities, and we have observed human strength under pressure. We find your capabilities adequate for council membership. Coming from a species that had conquered half the galaxy through military force, this was essentially a declaration of alliance and mutual respect. Several other alien delegations immediately began reviewing their own diplomatic positions. Regarding humanity, Dr. Elena Foster published her complete research on human psychological warfare 3 days later, and her findings became required reading at military academies throughout known space. Her conclusion that humans could use controlled anger as a tool for enhanced problem-solving challenged fundamental assumptions about emotional responses and tactical thinking. Most species treat emotions as obstacles to logical decision-making. Elena explained during her final presentation to the Xenopsychology Conference. Humans have somehow evolved the ability to use specific emotional states as cognitive enhancers rather than mental handicaps. She displayed brain scans that showed increased activity in planning and creativity centers when human subjects reached maximum frustration levels. When humans become really annoyed, they do not lose rational control. Instead, they gain access to tactical thinking patterns that are normally suppressed by social conditioning and risk. Aversion. Captain Ben Rodriguez found himself promoted to admiral within a month and assigned to command the newly created Diplomatic Enforcement Division. The Council had decided that some problems required solutions that traditional diplomacy could not provide, and humans had demonstrated unique qualifications for handling such situations. Ben's first assignment was to investigate reports of illegal weapons trading in the Outer Rim territories, where several species had been selling advanced military technology to criminal organizations. His reputation for thorough scanning procedures had spread throughout the galaxy, and weapons dealers were already abandoning their operations before human ships arrived. The phrase "now I am really annoyed" entered official galactic diplomatic vocabulary as a formal warning that required specific response protocols. When human representatives used those words during negotiations, other delegations were granted a 15-minute recess to reconsider their positions. Before discussions continued, young alien warriors throughout the galaxy began boasting about wanting to face a really annoyed human in combat, while their elders tried to explain that avoiding such confrontations was a sign of wisdom rather than cowardice. Several species developed specific training programs designed to recognize early warning signs of human tactical transition. Merchant guilds started offering human annoyance insurance as a premium service for trade routes that might involve diplomatic complications. The insurance covered losses resulting from equipment failures, transportation delays, and cargo inspections that occurred after humans announced their annoyance with specific trading practices. Diplomatic schools established entire departments dedicated to understanding human behavior patterns and developing strategies for avoiding situations that might trigger enhanced human tactical responses. Students learned to recognize subtle changes in human facial expressions, voice patterns, and body language that indicated approaching frustration levels. 5 years after the original incident, Jake Morrison kept a digital counter on his desk that displayed the number of days since humans had been really annoyed during diplomatic negotiations. The counter was visible to all alien visitors and had become something of a galactic landmark. Alien diplomats learned to check the number before beginning difficult negotiations because everyone understood that longer periods between incidents meant humans were feeling more patient and cooperative. When the counter showed low numbers, visitors tended to be more accommodating and less likely to make unreasonable demands. The current record stood at 1,247 days without a human annoyance incident, and Jake updated the display personally every morning as part of his routine. The number had become a source of pride for human diplomats and a subject of nervous fascination for alien representatives. War Chief Thaxmore visited Jake's office regularly to discuss military cooperation between human and Crovaxi forces. During one such meeting, he asked about the psychological effects of maintaining the counter. Admiral Morrison, does the pressure of maintaining diplomatic calm affect human decision-making? Thaxmore inquired while studying the glowing numbers. Do your people feel constrained by the expectation that annoyance leads to tactical escalation? Jake considered the question carefully because he had wondered about the same thing. War Chief, I think the counter actually helps us stay focused on peaceful solutions. When we know that everyone is watching for signs of human annoyance, we work harder to find compromises that avoid confrontation. He gestured toward the diplomatic wing where negotiations continued daily between dozens of species. But we also know that if someone pushes us past reasonable limits, we have demonstrated our ability to respond effectively. That knowledge gives us confidence to remain patient longer than we might otherwise. The counter reset to 0 3 times. Over the following decade, as various species tested human resolve during critical negotiations, each incident resulted in rapid resolution of diplomatic disputes and strengthened human reputation for combining patience with capability. Nobody wanted to be responsible for resetting the counter because it meant dealing with really annoyed humans. And by then, everyone in the galaxy understood that such encounters rarely ended well for the species that caused them.